Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on another magnificent Monday. And this is the first Monday of the month, so it is the monthly Mental Health Matters show. You want to know what we're going to be talking about? You want to see who our guests are? Well, can you imagine there can actually be mental health in parenthood? I didn't think so either. Well, stay tuned. We'll show you how.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks again for joining us. And it's always truly a distinct privilege to sit here, and to all of the other shows, for this one in particular, our monthly Mental Health Matters. Publicly and proudly very grateful to Dr. Alexandra Bodden for facilitating every month a wonderful topic, excellent guests as we sit and discuss. So to you, a pleasant Monday, May good afternoon, Dr. Bodden.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And I'm so appreciative that Radio Cayman allows us to have this forum. I think it's such important topics that we're able to bring to light, bring to the discussion, bring out the mental health professionals so you guys can get to know us as well. Know that we're not scary, we don't bite, and we actually can. At least not on Mondays. So, we can be helpful. So I really appreciate that you guys allow us to have the spot each month. So thank you.
Well, thank you. You have been instrumental in putting this together from, feels like 1,000 years now. And hopefully,
it does. A good 1,000 years.
An excellent 1,000 years is sort of that Billy Joel song. If you don't know it, check it out. He is my favorite artist. But the idea that we get into chat about mental health and we get people to understand the importance of it as part and parcel of our, complete wellness. And talking about excellent guests, making their voyages from time to time and getting to know our community. Well, honored to welcome Dr. Chelsea Walton to our studio. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it is a pleasure. And if at some point, if it's okay, and if I do, you'll forgive me, I'm so proud of the wonderful professionals that we have in our society across. And at some point, maybe if not now, later, through you, to invite and make sure that we get our parents to appreciate the importance of drawing alongside our children as they take their first steps, as they go to their first school, as they continue graduate, go into university, continue through their careers, to see what that means then to welcome back into our society as part of the professional fold. So we'll get there.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, and join us also by phone from the Family Resource Center. So we have the program director, Ms. Charmy Miller. Ms. Miller, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Sterling. How are you?
Not too bad.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for accepting the invitation to join us as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So to our listeners, even though we have somebody on the phone, we still have the phone lines available if you just want to listen, but if you want to be a part of it and ask the questions. Now, as I try to do, for me, humor is not just a good deflector, good coping mechanism, but they say laughter is good medicine. It's a lot cheaper I think, than, having to take a drive to the pharmacy to get something. But mental health and parenthood, you would say,
Yeah, I know this was a really popular topic when we did. I think it was actually may have been year before last, but definitely a super important one, especially as I think that there's. So you've never been judged until you become a parent. I was like, this last year and a half of my life has been one of the most intense, because there's so many expectations and so much information and just so much to take in, and everyone has an opinion. So I think it's really important for us to look at this, and because we are the ones that are looking after our kids. So looking after mental health with parents is super important.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly take on board what you shared. You never get judged until you become a parent, and not just by other parents, but by the people closest to you, but even people you don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are times there's a book that you read, sounds written by somebody who has all sorts of experience, then you go, but they never had any children. They have all the other academic theoretical stuff, but you're not up that time when you're watching your child just to make sure the child is breathing. The child is perfectly healthy, but you're a nervous wreck.
Yeah. Having been a therapist working with kids prior to having children, it is different living with them and being with them all the time.
Absolutely.
That's
and
why
I think
say,
it gives you a different appreciation for the parents as well.
Huge respect, for sure.
Yeah. With that in mind, Dr. Walter, I mean, how do you look at it? Because as you said, you're a parent, and you're a professional, you're all these things, and sometimes you're speaking to your own parents or to your siblings or to your clients, and you can draw parallels with your lives. I mean, experience, they say, is the greatest teacher.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think it helps to give you a greater sense of understanding and empathy, and maybe bring in some of the maybe themes or difficulties that families might be facing that maybe they wouldn't offer on their own, but from your own experience can play a major role in how they parent, or the difficulties that the child might be facing or the parents might be facing. And so I think having that experience of being a parent, in my opinion, has made me a more skilled clinician and definitely more empathic as well towards my clients.
Ms. Charmaine, your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I definitely think that experience within our, personal lives strengthens our work as practitioners. So I absolutely agree with that. But then on the flip side, you also have individuals and professionals in our field that may not have that direct personal experience, but they certainly have, credibility as practitioners because of their training and professional background and experience working with families, which is equally, as rich. So I think, as long as we're able to find that level of empathy and unconditional positive regard towards our clients that we're working with, and we're able to support them and understand, and this is something that we like to convey a lot, that they are the experts in their lives, right? And so we're here to provide the skills, the knowledge, and certain degree of expertise, but recognizing that, different strokes for different folks, and this may work for some kiddos, and while on the flip side, it may not work for yours. So how about we continue to sharpen your skills and to support you so that you do feel confident in your parenting.
But let's just ask, because we're talking about parenting, but we won't go back to the beginning of the first steps, but let's just say we advance to the pregnancy. There is this lady who is in short order going to be bringing the greatest gift into the world. And whether it's the first child or whether it's child N, does it matter, the first child versus the parent who's now, this is the one of 10, this is, maybe the second, the third, that pregnancy, when we look at it. So the conception is great, everything is going well, and then the whole thing that sort of transpires during the pregnancy. Do we look at it from that perspective?
Yeah, for sure. And if it's okay, I will just reiterate what Ms. Charmaine had said, because that is absolutely true. As clinicians, we all have something to offer, whether it's our life experience or something else, because even if you have a child or children, every child is different, and that's where it's important, and that's where we rely a lot on our training and our knowledge base. But even if this is child N, it can still be completely different, and that's what's important, and that's what makes life so beautiful, right? That everyone is different, everyone is unique, but each pregnancy can be different in itself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, there might be different considerations or challenges for a mom who is, having her first pregnancy and bringing her first child into the world, such as how is that transition going to be, loss of identity, things like that. Whereas maybe, you're bringing your fourth child into the world, you might have some different concerns, like, in terms of like economic concerns, right? Like it's not cheap to have children, take care of them, raise them, right? And so the concerns might look a bit different, as well as like, okay, well, there's now I'm having to divide my attention and my resources across more children, right? Like, and then it can also lead into like, well, now there's a bit less time for me and to make sure that my needs are met. So I think that, each pregnancy is different, and each relationship, each child is going to be different. Each child's an individual, but definitely, the concerns might vary in those ways from the first child to maybe the third or fourth.
All right. Well, we got a first break to take. Once we come back, we'll continue our discussion. And for those who are listening, mental health and parenthood, we have Dr. Borden, Dr. Walton, we have Ms. Miller from the Family Resource Center. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Every day in the Cayman Islands, nonprofits and their volunteers work tirelessly, improving our communities and the lives of the people within them.
With GiversPlanet.com, you can make a difference by supporting a fundraising effort or starting your own. Givers Planet provides an online solution to conveniently raise money for your worthy cause. Whether you are fundraising for medical needs, education, animal welfare, youth programs, religious missions, school PTA efforts, or a nonprofit.
Simply create your fundraiser at GiversPlanet.com and spread the word to your local and international supporters so that they can visit and make a secure online donation. Start fundraising online today with GiversPlanet.com.
Are you a Caymanian status holder, or a resident of the Cayman Islands who is interested in enhancing transparency, accountability, ethical standards, and promoting awareness in public bodies? If you are civic-minded with the highest level of integrity, the Commission's Secretariat, on behalf of His Excellency the Governor, welcomes your expression of interest for appointment to the various statutory commissions. For more information on the commissions and candidate qualifications, visit the Commission's Secretariat website at www.commissionssecretariat.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And for our monthly mental health matters, this month's discussion, mental health and parenthood, Dr. Alexandra Borden from Oncourse Cayman. From the Mental Center, we have Dr. Chelsea Walton, and from the Family Resource Center, the program director, Ms. Charmaine Miller, who joins us by phone. I keep hearing, friends and family saying, you're really intelligent, you have a child, and then you go, you want to do that again? You have a second one? Because of the economics, the societal pressures, the changes in your physical and expectations. But thank God that we are wise beyond years, and some of us have more than 9 children, because if not, the 10th one wouldn't be born, right? Some of us are thankful that we have 2. Right, Miss Charmaine? She laughs.
Your examples.
There you go. Well, laughter is good medicine. Maybe I learned better in those classes where there was some jovial approach to it. But the pregnant, always, right? The pregnancy, though, I mean, we have that individual consciously decides, we're going to start a family, and talk to the partner. They go through it, try to find the economics, even do the research. And then there are some who say, well, I'm going to do that, maybe next year, and then they go to the checkup and go, oops, you realize you're 3 months, on. Really?
Because that was what I was going to say earlier, is that the circumstances of the pregnancy as well can affect how the mother responds, and how the father responds, and that all of that can affect the baby as well.
Okay.
So.
Dr. Walter, really, I mean, environmental factors, there's some of us who are very conscious. Don't have too much loud music. Please make sure you don't expose the child in vitro to these things, because studies may have indicated that if the child hears a repeated sound, the child may be able to come out and be familiar with it. I honestly believe that. I heard it, and I would sing, which was probably not the best thing to do.
Well,
but
that's awesome.
The national song, the most beautiful song ever composed anywhere. I sit out with Doug, trying to insult anybody. It is the most. So I would try to sing it to my children, and I'm convinced they recognize that song as they came out. I'm sure my son stood at attention. I'll leave that for now. So, Dr. Walton, from that perspective, those things, some parents actually consider them during the pregnancy, even from the day one, that they know how they proceed with their lives.
Right. So, I guess you're kind of asking like what the parents do, or what mom does, how that can impact the pregnancy and the infant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, well, kind of from a mental health perspective, and kind of going back to what Dr. Bodden said, that the circumstances of the pregnancy can have a major impact on, how mom feels, how she proceeds with the pregnancy. But, certain things like, having an unplanned, unexpected pregnancy, that is going to likely elicit a different response than, a couple who's been trying for a significant period of time to get pregnant, right? But I think there can be a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression that can set in based on a lot of like environmental or circumstantial factors. And then we know that, if mom is in an environment that's volatile, that there's a lot of trauma, chaos, violence, stuff like that, then that can actually impact like the neurological development of the infant.
It's interesting how that child in that protective womb is, and you'll guide me with the right words, but can actually feel, sense, and be impacted by these external forces. We presumably accept now, maybe don't eat certain things or consume certain things, avoid certain activities, make sure you get sleep and some exercise and rest and so on. Those are the physical things. But then what's happening around, how the mother is made to feel? Is that the hormones, the chemicals, the thing that's going through the mother's body and her thoughts that are affecting and impacting the child?
Well, I think it can be a bit of both, right? Like the psychological factors, maybe what mom thinks about, what she's worried about, like that sets off a cascade of hormones in the body, right? And there can be there is a lot of hormonal changes and a lot of physical changes that occur during a pregnancy, but in terms of like the environmental things as well, like pressure that maybe mom is facing from people that she interacts with, or how she's treated by others, like that that has an impact as well. So I'm thinking like young moms, even like the stigma of being maybe a teen mom, or judgment, or not being taken as seriously as maybe by physicians as maybe an older mother or something like that, like all of those things can have a impact on mom's mental and physical health, and then in turn on the baby.
And I think this is where, as you mentioned, to the physicians, maybe even that mother, the young professional is just up the ante, and she's married, ready to start. She's even asking questions. We've heard instances where as she goes to the physician, interviewing them, as it were, checking, just the way that physician would respond could impact how that relationship develops and whether that mother proceeds with prenatal care with that person. So the society is right, Ms. Armin?
No, absolutely. And I'm glad Dr. Watson spoke to the risk factors that are present when we talk about our young mom that may have a lot of trauma in their lives, and we see that quite often through our Young Parents program. Oftentimes they will be a lot less, they won't advocate for themselves, and they really won't, in terms of physical well-being or even their own mental health well-being, it is not on the top of their list, right? So their first medical checkup is actually going to happen until maybe later down the line, because then your, let's say your average pregnant women who maybe 8 weeks down discovers that they're pregnant, or even 4 weeks into their pregnancy have found out, they're very much keen to set up their first prenatal appointment. That might not be the case for someone else who may be struggling with more mental health conditions or some form of mental health, experiencing a lot of mental health symptoms and may not have a lot of stability in their lives. So they're far more resistant and won't advocate for themselves. And if they are experiencing a lot of barriers in accessing medical care, such as health insurance, which we know can be quite a struggle, there's already delay a lot in terms of caring for that child while the child is in womb. So it's certainly there, and the research has pretty much proven that there's a strong correlation between a parent's mental health and a child's mental and physical well-being too. So that prenatal care is so important, but oftentimes if you're experiencing a lot of barriers to accessing that, it may deter that, and unfortunately it sets up the child sometimes to fail too from a developmental standpoint.
Now, Dr. Walton, from your research and your work, what are some of the more striking things that you've come across, both as a clinician but also as a mother, and is there any great correlation between the two? I mean, you referenced that as a parent you become more empathetic, you can relate, what he who feels and knows you. How does the two, the academic versus the practical, and maybe even some of your work and research, what are some of the discoveries that you've happened upon?
I think just how universal some of the thoughts and the worries and the experiences that pregnant women have or new moms have. Despite having, different backgrounds or, different circumstances, a lot of women will be, I guess, feel as though she shouldn't feel anything besides pure joy around, her pregnancy, giving birth, things like that. But there's a lot of worries that are actually quite natural that a lot of women experience. And I think, the pressure to feel joy, to be nothing but happy, but nothing but, focused on, the baby, not worrying about yourself, kind of delaying whatever it is that your needs are that are being met. Like those, I think that's something that's really stood out to me, is just like how universal some of those experiences are, and just how much we don't necessarily talk about it or normalize it, that it's okay to have a variety of emotions around a major life change and transition, and to have some worries and to some concerns, and because sharing that, there's a fear that people will think that you're a bad mother, right? Or you don't love your baby, you don't care about your baby, things like that. So I think that's kind of what has really stood out most to me, is some of those experiences that are more.
And I'm glad you referenced that, because the mother in Cayman versus the mother in China or Canada or elsewhere, that mother's going through the same sort of thing in terms of, and yet what she's feeling and thinking could be the same no matter where she is. The access to healthcare and the other things are, perhaps indicative of their society, their economics and the like. But she's still having these doubts, these feelings of elation. I mean,
it's such a major change for everything. So especially for the woman because of the physical changes, but even for the father as well.
Right.
I know we had a show focusing specifically on fathers, but they are greatly impacted by everything that goes on, as well, sometimes even physically by the pregnancy too. Yeah. My husband was sick both times I got pregnant. So so it's important to look at the role that fathers can play and contribute as well. But it's just such a major change to everything. That there are going to be all these feelings and everything going on. So the woman has so many of the biological changes with after the birth, all the changes that happen biologically as the body is readjusting to no longer supporting the second life inside of it, perhaps by breastfeeding.
Yeah.
But I think looking at the mental health aspects, there's especially things like eating disorders can be so easily triggered. There's changes in mood, changes in energy, changes in appetite that can go throughout the pregnancy. So mental health is important to monitor and screen for the whole way through. But after the pregnancy in particular, we have something called postpartum onset, which is where we can look at a lot of different disorders sometimes being triggered for the first time. About 80% of mothers will experience the postpartum blues, where there's going to be this kind of sadness that Dr. Walton was talking about, where it's weird, the pregnancy part is over, the baby's here all the time. Right. Sometimes there's difficulties with the pregnancy. Sometimes they have to deal with like a NICU stay. So there's, everyone's life looks different. Everyone's birth looks different. And so sometimes it doesn't go like we thought. And so then we have to deal with kind of those expectations and managing that, managing perhaps the grief of things not going like we hoped it would. Even if you take all the oils and have the ball to bounce on and take the music, sometimes you end up with a C-section. And so there's a lot of things that come in, and I think a lot of us, if it is planned, we have kind of ideals of things that we want. And so kind of managing the expectations versus reality is important. But even things like postpartum depression is going to be more severe depression that comes after. We see postpartum anxiety, and those affect between 10 and 15% of women, even postpartum psychosis. So it's a huge biological undertaking, having the baby and having your body readjust afterwards. And then, of course, you add on the lack of sleep and the high demands that you now have as well.
And then, you want to get back into your work, if your career, if that was where you are, or if you choose, consciously, whether you have a partner or whether it's something that you have planned for. Hey, listen, I'm going to take X time off, longer than whichever. How that weighs on you, how does your, colleagues and your family and your wider community look at you? So, Ms. Charmaine, how does some of that sort of resonate with you?
Well, it's really interesting because as you mentioning that, the first thought to my head came, thank God our government is revisiting our policy, our maternity leave policy and paternity leave policy, because, it's way overdue. And so I'm fortunate. My only thing was kind of like really until now, after I've had 2 children. But I think it's definitely, it's a nationwide issue overall, whether you are working within the public or the private sector. We recognize that. That time that you have post-delivery and having your baby is instrumental to that child's well-being, to the attachment that's being formed between you and your child, as well as your partner, right? So creating resources to actually support that development, you're actually investing in your country. And you're investing also, in the social issues here and trying to address those too. So that's how we see it, as an investment, really and truly, in making sure that we're raising, children that are emotionally stable, that are both mentally and physically stable. So, when I look at, even for us as a small unit, and I'm pretty sure the other experts can speak to that, we also have to recognize that even though our policies hasn't matched up what should, what research says maternity leave should look like, or what is sort of like a good package for that, we also have to do our part in recognizing, well, how do we support a mother, or a father transitioning back into the workspace? Exactly. What are some flexibilities that can be provided to ensure that they still are able to, there's not such huge disruption in this new journey of their lives, and how can we support strengthening that attachment? And while still recognizing that there's still a job that needs to be done, but how can we be creative about that? And I think working, within the pandemic has opened up a lot of that, actually, and we've recognized that, we can work differently and be probably more efficient, but actually to a point where it can be advantageous for mothers and fathers too.
All right, well, let's quickly take a break. But for those who are listening, the phone lines are there, 949-8037, or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Join us after the break.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location, ValueMed on Walkers Road or Boddentown. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
This is a CUC advisory. Due to a required pole replacement, customers on Hearst Road in Newlands from the junction with J. Hubert Drive north to the Coast Guard headquarters, including all of North Sound Estate and all side roads, will experience interruption to their electrical service on Wednesday, May 4th, between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. For more information, please contact CUC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email at service@cuc.ky.
Beyond Basics Medical Laser and Skincare is offering an incredible 30% off services in celebration of mamas. Visit beyondbasics.ky to shop online and save by using our promo code BBMAMA. Unwanted body hair and ingrowns? Experience laser hair removal from beyondbasics.ky. Scarring, fine lines, loose skin, and enlarged pores? Then experience microneedling, body slimming, and contouring from beyondbasics.ky. Dull, dry, and uneven skin tone? Experience the Hydrofacial and Peels from beyondbasics.ky. Give Mama the lifestyle of confidence and beauty transformations that will create significant change she will love forever. Shop with instant, easy pay online at beyondbasics.ky this Friday and Saturday only and enjoy 30% off services with the promo code BBMAMA.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And it is our monthly Mental Health Matters show. Mental health and parenthood. Dr. Alexandra Borden from Encore Cayman from the Wellness Center, Dr. Chelsea Walton, and the program director over the Family Resource Center. The taxpayers' dollars at work. We have Miss Charmaine Miller. Miss Miller, you still there, Mom?
Yeah.
I was almost inclined, right, to attempt to make a joke, so I'm going to pretend like I haven't. We're talking about how the factors in life affect things, and during pregnancy sometimes we're conscious of that, and so and I thank Dr. Borden for sending not exhaustive and certainly not exhausting so much information that I get to read, and it helps me. And in there, I was reached out to someone and they sent me this what I thought was an infographic, and they said how liars are born. And I thought, I don't know. So we know that, there's an element of conception, that the male sperm needs to come over. And there's this graphic where, all these sperm are swimming, and then the hid sperm turns back to the rest and say, hey, stay there, I'll be right back. Tonight I'm performing live at 8. No, but I do that to Jess because we don't see sometimes how things affect us, right? And from that mother who's very conscious, preparing, planning, she's gone everywhere. And things never seem to go according to plan, with your pregnancy, with your birth, how you're going to raise the child, that school's going to attend, all the money that you've saved and all the sacrifices you've made. And yet when we think back to our parents and grandparents, we think that they've had it so much easier, or how did they manage to do it because they had it so much harder? We have all this technology. Dr. Walton?
I think it's harder.
Harder, you think? Well,
I think it's harder. I think today is harder.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like we have so many more distractions when it comes to parenting children.
Okay.
And the outside influences. Kids have so much more information that wasn't accessible before. So it's definitely you're not just battling the information given to them by kids at the school. They're getting information from the internet and from other people all over the world.
And perhaps even some of the sources that are supposed to be credible, the government sources, are not always accurate. A typo here, maybe deliberate. So how do we balance that? I mean, our mothers and grandmothers, they were the best sources of wisdom. Right, Dr. Walton?
Yeah, I think so. I think they have an infinite amount of wisdom that, they can share and pass down. I mean, it's hard to say because I wasn't, around at that time. It's a lot different, right?
Yeah.
But I think that some of the things that kind of complicate parenting today, are like technology, right? It's great to have information, but we need to have the credible information, right? Being inundated with information, knowing what applies to you, what doesn't apply to you, just having, just unlimited access. And then I think as well, just kind of like what I've heard kind of like from older family members, there was more of a sense of community, right? So, families were larger, raised together, aunts, uncles, everyone played a very integral role. But I think now we're, I guess, maybe a little bit more individualistic, and both women and men are very career oriented generally, and so that makes it hard to kind of balance all of these pieces in parenthood.
I think that we share perhaps if the society is not necessarily, I don't think we have a homogeneous society, but there were certain values that have shared, the cultural perhaps. Take for instance, some of us from the older generation would accept that you never took a child outside after a certain hour a day or between certain times, or if you did, they catch a draft and
it's raining. Yep.
we did those
they got the two.
Yep. and maybe us today now with all the technology and all the supposed science that we have, we will frown on that practice. But maybe that was not just anecdotal, an old wives' tale, and maybe that was actually something that they were able to substantiate. It doesn't matter that they can now take the child to a physician, get some over-the-counter thing and pop it and the child gets better. They prevented it to begin with.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say as well. That's another way that technology impacts us. I know I Google everything now, but if you actually, I saw someone do this where he Googled if caffeine is good for your eyes or if caffeine is bad for your eyes, for your eyesight. And you can find research supporting both.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to be so careful. But there's just so much information there all the time.
But what is, and perhaps, maybe I'll just say this to include Ms. Sharman as well, as she's joined us by phone. It is not to discredit anything. I think, I say this carefully, trust but verify. And there are times when that resource that we think is supposed to be credible, for me, it's horrible, because if I don't have that physical document that is maybe 100 years old, the original source, I go online, I find this thing, and I go, but this was somehow transcribed from somewhere, and it's probably inaccurate. What if it's maliciously, intentionally, an and is included, or the and is taken out, or the comma is put in a different spot? It changes. It can change the impact. And I went to a professional, I guess healthcare person, and I asked the question, and just like I could do. Popped on the phone and went and looked at something online. I'm going, well, where's your resource book? Because I read that, but now read this, and it contradicts. So how then, in asking that, how then do we get, Dr. One?
Well, yeah, I mean, research always evolves, so the credibility of the sources is definitely something to be determined, and that's definitely something I work with all my students on, to look at who ran the study and who paid for the study, right? Because that's where you see research can really be led to say a lot of different things. And so if you can look like wider even to the meta-analyses, so ones that's the study of other studies, you tend to see you get a better feel for the trend in the literature. But things are evolving all the time. I say especially in mental health, there's a lot of changes happening all the time. And so sometimes tapping into the literature, the scientific literature, can be more helpful than necessarily having something in print. Sometimes by the time things go to print, other information has already come out. So I have 2 huge bookshelves of books because I believe in books as well. But that's where sometimes being able to find scientific research online can be helpful if you have access to the professional databases.
Right. And I guess too, as we go into the break, I'll just say that to share that us as parents or as lay people certainly do our own information searching, but be willing to have the professional psychologist to hand to consult, especially when it comes to the thing. But just don't take everything on board as if it's gospel just because it comes from the CDC, for instance.
Well, and ultimately you'll have to make the decision for your child and your situation. I just came from the dentist with my baby's first dentist appointment, and the fluoride question came up. If you look it up, there's people who are adamantly against fluoride for children, and this dentist happened to be a huge proponent for it. So you have to kind of take in the information and then weigh it out for yourself, because ultimately you know your child best.
Well, maybe after the break we could talk about that, because you know your child best. You know that this thing, let's say it's a supplement or it's a particular food, and this is a great food. For me, it's fish. Every child should eat fish. It's the best food, especially caught in the North Sun, not anywhere else, in the North Sun. But your child mightn't like it for some reason. Is it because the child doesn't have the palate for it, or is it because that particular thing causes the child to feel a certain way? At 2 months old or 2 years old or 22, the child probably knows the body. So as a parent, be the best advocate, be involved and invested. Maybe we can talk about some of those things. All right. We're going to pause and take our break for our headline news at 1. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings. It is Teacher Appreciation Week, and the Ministry of Education is inviting Cayman residents to publicly recognize the hard work and dedication of our teachers. To participate, post a written or video message on social media to celebrate our outstanding teachers and share your reasons for recognizing them. When you post, make sure to include the hashtags Cayman Loves Teachers and Thank a Teacher This Week. And where possible, tag your featured teacher schools. The Ministry of Education says, if you don't mind, you can also include their social media handle at Education Cayman in Instagram and Facebook posts. Turning to international headlines, a federal jury today convicted a New York Police Department veteran of assaulting an officer during the U.S. Capitol riot, rejecting his claim that he was defending himself when he tackled the officer and grabbed his gas mask. Thomas Webster, a 20-year-old NYPD veteran, was the first Capitol riot defendant to be tried on an assault charge and the first to present a jury with a self-defense argument. The jurors deliberated for less than 3 hours before convicting Webster of all 6 counts in his indictment, including a charge that he assaulted Metropolitan Police Department officer Noah Rathbun with a dangerous weapon, a metal flagpole. Ray Charles and the Judds joined the Country Music Hall of Fame Sunday in a ceremony filled with tears, music, and laughter, just a day after Naomi Judd died unexpectedly. Her loss altered the normally celebratory ceremony, but the music played on as the genre's singers and musicians mourned the country legend while also celebrating the 4 inductees: the Judds, Ray Charles, Eddie Bayers and Pete Drake. Naomi and Wynonna Judd were among the most popular duos of the 1980s, scoring 14 #1 hits during their nearly three-decade career. On the eve of her induction, the family said in a statement to the Associated Press that Naomi Judd died at the age of 76 due to, quote, the disease of mental illness. Those are your headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to for the opportunity to host our monthly Mental Health Matters. This month's discussion, mental health in parenthood. Dr. Alexandra Borden, Dr. Chelsea Walton, and Ms. Charmaine Miller are our guests. I'm not just trying to be jovial, certainly not trivial, but I think as parents, if sometimes we don't have a little bit of lighthearted moment, it gets hard. We love our children dearly. We do anything and everything for them in terms of trying to make sure that they have everything they need, and even sometimes their wants. But it must be overwhelming, even for that very experienced parent, the judgment that they will get from others, the expectations of society. You're not doing this the way it should be done. The textbook says this, or your grandmother said that. I guess that's all of the joys, Dr. Borden, of being a parent.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot. And I know in a lot of the shows we talk about being flexible, being able to adapt to situations. Parenthood is probably the greatest challenge of that, especially because every time you figure out a certain stage, they change. You figure out they're crawling, you get the house baby-proofed, and now they're up and running, right? And so it changes constantly. And so, every time you think you're ahead of the game, you get a bit of a curveball. So it's about always trying to be aware of what's going on. And I think that's what's hard, is we often get very fixated on the children, and we sometimes forget to look after ourselves, or we don't feel like we feel selfish if we try to look after ourselves. And that's where I think it's really important as parents to, and I say this is something I have to work on and remind myself of as well, is to slow down and do check-ins with ourselves, to see where we're at. They always talk about how you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And so being able to look after ourselves, check in with ourselves, be honest with ourselves. Are we actually dealing with things? Are we actually coping? Do we need to take a break? Asking for help as well is a big thing. Accepting if someone comes over and wants to wash the dishes, or someone wants to take the baby for a little while, because it can be hard. We feel like we have to do it all.
But as Dr. Walton referenced and Ms. Charmaine sort of picked up on, we talked about the extended family, the extended community, that now we're individualistic, and what I wrote down, and thanks to Dr. Walton for reading my thoughts. But we had that support without actually seeing it. So now today we've got a coin, child care, and not just child care in relation to the working environment, but if we were to do that, I say this, and if anybody says this wrong, then correct me so that I'm not, but I believe that it is significant if we think of what Ms. Charmaine was referencing earlier now, where we have more and more families and businesses sort of working remotely and the like. The 4-day work week as an example, we can see what that one day of not having to pay for childcare, what I could do for the economics in the household, versus when you have to be working constantly. What do you do with that child? Who's raising that child? What is happening to that child?
I think that the pressures, I think now we have a lot of advancements, obviously, right, in which we have both breadwinners now in a household, right? If we take just your average nuclear family, and so everyone, we're working. I find something about just our society today. Everyone's just on this routine called life. We work, we go home, and we do it all over again. So there's not a lot of opportunities to actually step back and just enjoy one another. Sometimes, if anything, it's something that now we have to put on our checklist. It doesn't happen so naturally anymore, just because of all of our commitments. There's a lot of pressure financially, to make sure that we're able to pay our bills, and then make sure that our kids have everything that they need, the extracurricular activities and whatnot. And unfortunately, they're sacrificed to the detriment to the family too. And oftentimes when we're working with our families, the first thing that we say to our families is, in order for you to take care of your children, oftentimes they're presenting very much depleted, right? And so we always use the airplane oxygen mask analogy, right? Your cup is super empty, in case of an emergency, who needs to take care of themselves first? That's you, right? And following that, then you're in a position to take care of your child. And so that is something that we have to stress, self-care, so often. And self-care doesn't mean that you're going to take these, spa days for yourself and whatnot. It's just little moments and tokens for yourself where you could just connect with yourself and take care of yourself. And even if you're a single parent, being able to do that in a way that's responsible enough, and you know that your child is, busy painting, drawing, playing with a toy, and you're taking a little 25 minutes to yourself, right? Those are gifts that you can give to yourself and fill your cup a little bit more, so that then you're in a position to parent better. Then you're in a position to play better and be more present, as opposed to just doing it just because I have to do it, right? You're in a better position to have more patience to do homework, to run errands without feeling depleted. Just the little things that I think maybe in the past they were easier to do, and now we're finding ourselves stretched thin a lot more because there are more pressures on the family.
And those pressures that you reference, I'm asking myself now, not only could that affect the relationships between the spouses or the partners, the relationship with the parent and the child, but even amongst the siblings, if there's more than one, or the cousins or the classmates or the like. So with that in mind, what are we doing as a society to see, I think back to all of the political campaigns across almost all of the Western democracies that talked about breakdown in family values, and they're blaming the television and all these things. But if your families are not able to spend time together, and when they do, they're so stressed about, well, can we go to the movies tonight? No, we can't. Family of four is $200 to go to the movie. Can we go get ice cream? No, we can't, because family of four is $100 to go get ice cream. I'm sure I'm not exaggerating.
Can we go to the beach? Yes, it's free.
Well, no, you can't, because the beach accesses are being impeded. And if it's not that, then it may be dogs running wild or people playing loud music. So as society changes and these things are changing, and I'm not trying to be offensive or just overly jovial, but these are the realities in some societies. Or the drive to the beach is a 3-hour drive from where you live. I'm not.
I think it does involve some creativity sometimes. I think that's where it can be really helpful, having some support, because sometimes it can feel like we've done everything, we've tried everything, and nothing works. And so it can be really hard sometimes to try to think outside the box and look for different opportunities. I think having support, I know that there's a lot of activities, and a lot of the medical places will actually run like baby classes to help parents that are who are soon to be parents. And you learn information about how to care for the child, but it also gives you a chance to connect with other parents that are going through similar things, because kids do weird things.
No.
It's so firsthand, yes. I now understand what you guys were always talking about, right? And so it's helpful to have other parents that you can talk to, like, my kid did this, is this normal? What's going on, right? Because sometimes it's things you don't read in the books that you get, or you don't see in all the web pages that you go through. So it can be really helpful, and sometimes just to share and to vent and hear other people are going through the same thing. Like as therapists, we can normalize it and validate. Sometimes it's really helpful to hear other parents are going through the same thing, and then you can share ideas. You can hear what do they do, because there's a lot of paid activities. There's some free activities too, but sometimes it's hard to find out about them. So if you have other parents, if you're friends with other parents of similar ages, then you can get ideas, get connections. You can share childcare sometimes. So when we are really depleted, it can be hard to have the energy to do that. So if we're not to that stage, maybe reaching out to your pediatrician or to a mental health professional. But if you're still feeling yourself enough to be able to do that, reaching out and building a support network in that way can be super helpful.
So as I do for all of these shows, in particular, I ask different people, and they're now used to it. Some of them are they see the call and they go, okay, what's the question this month? and one of the questions, your children's friends, are they friends of your friends, or are you friends of your children's friends? So growing up, you played with the children that your parents interacted with. Now you play with the parents of your children's friends. And we had a lady, she was engaged. Charmaine, you any thoughts on that before I go further with that question?
I don't know. I think it's a combination. I mean, for me personally, I think support is definitely important. And right now, I have a 10-year-old going on to 20, and an 8-year-old following in his path. And social interaction is very important at that age group, right? And so I have to be very intentional about stepping outside of my comfort and organizing play dates for them, right? And so it's, for me personally, I have, our family, obviously, and so there's a lot of opportunities to get support and that social interaction and whatnot. But for them, they oftentimes want to interact with their own friends, right? And their friends may not be friends of my friends. Mm-hmm. And so it's that extra step that we have to take to support our children's development too, right? And recognizing that, yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable to make that first kind of like take call to interact with my son's friend's parent, but I have to because I know that that's important to them. Right. The next thing you know what? It wasn't that bad going over to the skate park and hanging out with, Johnny's mom. It was enjoyable, and I got an opportunity to socialize with another adult, somebody new, somebody different, right? And it's sometimes it takes effort, and initially, you're kind of like wondering, oh, should I not? But it's at the end of the day looking at my wholesome child, what do they need, and how can I be there, be of assistance to support that need.
But Dr. Warren or Dr. Walter, you guys want to jump in? If not, I was going to ask, Ms. Charmaine used the word play date. And in this conversation, I was just glad Ms. Charmaine jumped in there, right? I asked one, and the lady responded, just that word alone, when growing up in some societies, you didn't have to do that. The children played, there were spaces that they were interacting. Now you have to consciously, and we have a word for it, a phrase, play date. Now, when they're in their teens and, university, or you're dating, there's a play date. No, it's a little bit different. Her response to me was, what are we doing initially in unconsciously socializing and introducing the children to words? So all this a play date. Later on, the play is dropped, but it's still a date, and then your parent have gone from this thing that you arranged now to this thing that you have a bit of a hesitancy because the child is now on a date, whether as a whatever age you have navigated that child could start a Is it 13? Is it 18? Or is it? How does that play into? Any thoughts you want to weigh in? I'll share what the lady said.
Well, I mean, I would think that it's, the context of how it's described. I think a lot of times kids go through an age where they no longer want to be associated with things that are for babies. And so, so even though it is called a play date, and I don't know, you guys may have had different experiences with that probably gets dropped a little bit before, probably before they start dating. And although I also know growing up, I didn't use the word dating.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
We were talking.
Yeah.
Right? We had other words. We didn't actually talk about dating. So I don't know about the linguistics of it.
Yeah, but again, it's cultural to some extent. It's
definitely.
Yeah. And the pressures that we have, the time pressures that we have as adults, when do we make time to attend the birthday party with that child? We put it on the calendars. Some of us can have a month of birthdays every Saturday. All right, after the break, I'm trying to be respectful of our breaks today. I appreciate the discussions. We'll continue and we'll see whether or not we can still maintain a certain level of mental health in our parenthood. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Subway is serving up a special new sauce, bursting with flavor in every bite. The new Savory Collection is a tropical sweet and spicy sauce made with a combination of spices, habanero peppers, thyme, onion, black pepper, ginger, citrus juices, and molasses.
So good. Wow. Sensational.
Subway's Savory Collection. pairs perfectly with our oven roasted chicken or steak sub. Savor the flavor. For a limited time, only at Subway. Subway. Eat fresh.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter will be taking appointments from May 9th through 14th at his Crew Road Clinic. Appointment slots are limited, whether you're seeking advanced skincare, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles. Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. That is 946-9020.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks to Dr. Alexandra Borden for sharing with us and helping to encourage and nurture these discussions for our monthly mental health matters. Dr. Chelsea Walton for joining us, and Ms. Charmaine Miller. The idea that during parenthood, it seems for some of us that we may have come from a society, or we have developed a perspective that as long as the child is this or this, or when the child gets to this age, whatever that is, for some it's after university, some it's, you finish high school. For whatever reason, we've adopted in our mind as a parent a particular milestone. At this age, you're a big man now, you're 18, you're on your own. And for others, that relationship continues. The parent is 120 and the child is, 97, and they're still right there, as close as anything. Dr. Walton, what do we make about some of that? The parental milestones as well as the normal development milestones of children?
I think it's a very individual kind of thing. We might have certain expectations for, milestones that maybe our children are going to meet, or the way things are going to shape out. And when we get to that, sometimes arbitrary, date that we've set, then we recognize that, it's not, it hasn't shaped out the way that we thought that it's going to be. So I think it requires a lot of flexibility and being able to kind of adapt and recognize things for what they are at that particular time. I mean, there are certain things that, maybe you do want to follow up on, or you feel like it might indicate that, maybe that you or the child needs some more support, but sometimes it's just recognizing that each individual grows at a different pace.
Is it then that as a parent, as we said, you know your child best, try as best as possible, and I'm asking this, to be confident, to know, well, listen, you and your child have this incredible relationship, whether the child is only a few years old or whether another child is married with children and you still hang out. That relationship, parent-child, will evolve and change, and you're going from parent-child to not necessarily friends, but then you're having a conversation, with your children that you go, this is an adult now, right? Dr. Walton, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so the nature of the relationship will change over time, right? Based on, the child's, I guess, kind of maturity and developmental level, and I think that that's pretty normal. That's pretty natural for it to progress in that way, that you can have, still a sense of, I guess kind of when the child then reaches adulthood, that it feels a little bit more like you're friends in a way, right? Even though there's still that dynamic that, I'm your mom or you're my mom, and but the conversation's going to look different because you're at a different kind of level of maturity.
So we had a question from one, as I was, sort of speaking to people, and they said, well, your child now is a physician, an educator, a lawyer, a psychologist. Your child is now this. We would probably have no qualms if the child is in the technical areas, what I call the real intelligence, the mechanics, the plumbers, and the people that know what's going on. And you'll call on that child, hey, can you fix this for me? But if the child is a professional, let's say a lawyer, and you can do your estate planning or a financial planner, the lady asked the question, that dynamic now, you've educated the child, you paid for it, the child is now a practicing professional, and then you've gone as as the parent. Okay, can you help me with this? Put my will together. What's the spot here? Does that change the relationship? And is it, if I recall how she asked it, you now go into a sense of reverse dependence. You know, relying on your child as this expert to do, and you've become in the passenger seat of the one.
Well, can I just...
Yes.
That's really interesting, and I think at the end, like when we look at relationships, and if you could look at it from a pyramid perspective, like just envisioning a pyramid, relationship the foundation of that relationship should be based on respect and love, right, and nurturance. And it doesn't matter how educated or qualified and all the experiences that I may have, I'm still my mother's child, right? And so while I can teach and I can challenge a little bit more, at the end of the day, that is still my mother, right? And so there's still a certain degree of respect that should always be the foundation of relationship and nurturance and whatnot, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We're always going to revert back to that one person or two that provided nurture, stability, and safety in our lives. And so that should really be the whole point. And yeah, there's going to be dependency. There is, right? But it's healthy dependency that we want, as opposed to a codependency and then treating our adults who help to shape us as children, because that's unhealthy then, right? It's always making sure that we're maintaining that level of respect and authority in our lives, while and still being grateful for the opportunities that have led to where we're at today as adults.
Yeah. And that's basically what I was going to say, is that my experience and friends that are also psychologists or in other professions is that you're still a child, and they will often seek out someone else's opinion. They may get yours as well, but a lot of times they want it somewhere else. And for mental health, it's definitely more helpful to have that go somewhere else.
Right.
So,
and perhaps turn that dime over for a second. There are some parents allegedly that want to live vicariously through their children's lives, and you wanted to be a great football player. Now you're teaching your daughter and training her. She's going to become the next great football player, or the adventures of your child and travel that you didn't get to do. Does that to an extent impact that relationship, and maybe the pressures directly sometimes that you foster onto your child, the expectations? Dr. Walton?
I think so, because I think that I think when that happens, you're not really honoring that child as an individual who has their own interests and strengths and ambitions, and so I think it's important to be mindful of not putting a lot of undue pressure on children to kind of live up to certain maybe dreams or aspirations that we had, rather than allowing them to kind of choose their own path to a degree, with guidance and support and being there to kind of to support them along. But I think that dynamic of putting your living vicariously through your child can create a lot of resentment and undue pressure, and the child kind of arriving at a place in their life where they're not passionate or happy about where they're at, and kind of recognizing how that came to be can be damaging to the relationship.
And I guess sometimes we would appreciate that perhaps if the parent is in this profession, whether it's an electrician or whether it's a physician, that the child may gravitate to that because that's what mommy or daddy did. That is separate and distinct if it's what the child wants. But what about the instance where we hear, child at this age is experiencing this thing, and we even assign, horrible labels to it. Those behaviors that children exhibit, whether before they're 2, whether they're in their teens, are those things that have to transpire? We talk about the rebellious teenager, for instance. I have my own views on it. How do we do that as our parent is navigating? It's come almost to expect that at 2 years old is going to be the tantrums, and at 12 and 18, there can be this rebellion, and there's this distancing. Any thoughts on that, and how parents approach that? Is that the norm, and live with it because it's going to be what is going to happen? No ifs, ands, and buts.
Yeah, I mean, the expectations are so different at any stage, and that's where I think talking to the child, especially when they get into the teens, there's so much that goes on for them, can be really helpful. And this is where, so if we even step it back to Ms. Sherman and talked about like the attachment, you know, and that's where that initial paternity leave, maternity leave is so helpful to form what we call something as like a secure attachment. All of my psychology classes start with a lecture on attachment theory, because that initial connection is so important. And this is why maternal mental health and paternal mental health early on especially are so important, so that the parents are able to connect with the child. But then building and establishing that relationship, and that can even be done a bit later on as well, even if, you know, there was difficulties to start with. Having that connection and the communication can help us to understand where the kid, what's going on for the child, picking up on differences, and hopefully having that communication to be able to navigate things like dating, differences and changes in identity, and trying to figure out who they are, and, you know, dealing with peer pressure and all the difficult things that tend to come in teens. And so it's a lot of it is being open to making changes and being able to hear from the child, but hopefully having that relationship with them. But reaching out, you know, definitely if there's things that are coming up that you don't know how to deal with, or you're not sure of, you've not heard of, especially I see this a lot, especially with like teens with like sexual identity questions, sexual orientation questions, that can be really intimidating for parents. Reach out, get some support. There's so much help available on island. And it's not that there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with the child. I think we have to be really careful, because I know culturally we tend to have a very strong religious background, and so the messages can be quite mixed, which actually compounds the situation. So, you know, without fear of judgment, you know, reaching out to the mental health professionals to find out, is this normal? Is this what's, you know, because there are going to be some parts of the identity development and trying out different roles that is going to be normal. If it's causing the child distress, then it might be something that's worth having some support for. If it's causing the parent distress, it might be worth having some support for that as well. I really respect parents who are able to say, like, I don't know what's going on here, and so sometimes I'll actually talk to the parents alone and try to brief them to try to let the child have the conversation, because sometimes the child just shows up as very depressed, and, you know, they don't know what's going on, and then I can get the kid in session if we are able to connect and I'm able to find out what's going on to try to have that conversation.
So, Ms. Sharmin, and as we close out the discussion, perhaps invite your thoughts, but also you shared earlier about harder now raising a child than it probably was later on. You know,
maybe because I'm the parent now.
Yeah. Right. So your sort of closing thoughts for today's discussion as well.
And can you tell us about all your new programs too?
Oh dear. Sure. You know, the common word that I've heard throughout today's 1 hour and a half discussion has been support, and recognizing that, you know, you're not alone in this, right? Throughout your journey from pregnancy all the way to, you know, just parenting your teenager, you are certainly not alone in this. Something that I love about, you know, just living in Cayman is the abundance of resources and the great work that we do, both within the public sector and the private sector. We're so fortunate to have such skilled professionals. So recognizing that, you know, if you're curious, just that mere curiosity of wondering, well, you know what, is this normal? Reaching out and recognizing that we are not going to judge all across the board, whether it's, you know, accessing services at the Wellness Center or on course or FRC. We are, you know, we're here to support you, and you're the expert in your life, and we're here to, you know, share some knowledge and experience, but at the end of the day, you're in that driver's seat, right? And our job is to empower and make you feel like you can do this, make you feel more confident. So, and that's something, you know, from a lot of our group work that we're doing. We do a lot of groups for parents that are divorced and separated who still are parenting their same child, and that's just a unique journey on its own. You know, oftentimes just accessing groups gives them that confidence that they didn't have before. You know, picking up, sometimes they feel like their life is just shattered, picking up the pieces and recognizing that I'm not alone in this. All these other parents are sharing their same experiences, and some of them, you know, are on the same boat, and others are a little bit more ahead. So why not try something different, right? And so that is always something that we try to encourage, recognizing that you're not alone. There's support and services available for you, and you don't have to think that you know it all. right? Even if you fail, try it again, because that's the same message we give our children, right? When they're not able to work on that math project on iExcel or their math assignments or language, whatever the case may be, we tell them, keep trying, come on, you got this, right? And it's the same message for us as adults, too. Okay, today was crappy. You felt like a crappy parent, right? You yelled, and that's how dare you, right? You made your child feel bad, but recognizing, okay, I'm a human being. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm sorry, and let's try again. Tomorrow's another day, right? So oftentimes parents just hearing that, it gives them some compassion, being kinder to one another, which unfortunately right now there's just a lot of judgment out there, and that's why we feel like we've got to do everything the right way, right? But that's not the case, so that's the final word. And if you have, if you're interested in accessing any services, just emailing frc@gov.ky. Our core mandate is all parenting related, so if we're not able to provide that direct service, then we'll certainly make the referrals to agencies like Wellness Center or OnCourse Cayman.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Sharmi. Dr. Walton?
Closing remarks. I think kind of what stood out from today's discussion for me was, like Ms. Charmaine said, was like support, and also kind of I was thinking a little bit more about self-care and, how that is sometimes portrayed as like some luxurious spa day, but a lot of times it's just making sure our basic needs are met, because, if you're a parent trying to get kids up and ready for school and fight traffic and get to work on time and all of that, it might be 3:00 and you haven't even had anything to eat yet for the day, right? So just making sure that you are slowing down the pace where you can and taking care of even just those basic needs for nutrition, for hydration, for rest, right? And just figuring out, where you need to focus at a particular point in time, and that you don't have to do it all and not everything has the same weight, and that, taking care of yourself is also a priority. It'll make a difference in the way that you parent, the way you move through life, and your experience in general. If your needs are met, then you tend to feel better and you tend to do a bit better in situations that are challenging. So those are kind of my final thoughts and remarks.
Dr. Warden.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything that they've said, and I really appreciate you guys coming on the panel. But definitely there's so much support available on Island. I think knowing that there's no one right answer or one right way to do things, and to ask questions and to remember that your child best can help with making the right decision for you and for your family, and hopefully help with the conversations where you hear that everyone else has all their own different ways as well. So there's no right way to do it, and there's definitely support should you need it. For you, for parenting, Ms. Charmaine talked about FRC. Other services are provided by governments. They're free of charge. Of course, their partner agency is the Counseling Center, also available free of charge, which is available at 949-8789. You can give them a call to get an appointment there. But lots of different, I know that Wellness Center has had lots of parenting programs. I think one about the developing brain recently, which has been very well received. I know FRC has the positive parenting program, so there's lots of options out there. We'll build our child programming soon, so we're not in that game yet, but there's lots available. Even the OTs have lots of options available. So talk to your pediatrician, talk to other moms or dads, and then you can get some ideas and figure out what's going to work best for you.
And you're not in this alone, as parents. And
absolutely.
We feel that we are, always have to be on, and we put a lot of pressures on ourselves. But our parents survived and succeeded. We will as well, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you to you very much, and thanks, Dr. Warden, for every month facilitating a wonderful discussion. And I'm glad that we have these resources. Dr. Walton, I hope this will be first of many times that you join us in the studio with Dr. Warden.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, it's a pleasure. And to our listeners, we want to invite you to rejoin us after the break. We're going to change things and have a different discussion, but we're going to tell you what it is. You know why? Because we want you just to stay tuned and see what is he going to talk about next. There's no chocolate yet, but it might be. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway Box to Go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
JN Money, money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN Money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash or use your money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
Beyond Basics Medical Laser and Skincare is offering an incredible 30% off services in celebration of mamas. Visit beyondbasics.ky to shop online and save by using our promo code BBMAMA. Unwanted body hair and ingrowns? Experience laser hair removal from beyondbasics.ky. Scarring, fine lines, loose skin, and enlarged pores? Then experience microneedling, body slimming, and contouring from beyondbasics.ky. Dull, dry, and uneven skin tone? Experience the Hydrofacial and Peels from beyondbasics.ky. Give Mama the lifestyle of confidence and beauty transformations that will create significant change she will love forever. Shop with instant, easy pay online at beyondbasics.ky this Friday and Saturday only and enjoy 30% off services with the promo code BBMAMA. The Spring Labor Force Survey is currently being conducted by the Economics and Statistics Office. The Labor Force Survey collects data on employed and unemployed persons. Trained interviewers with ESO ID cards will visit randomly selected households in all districts. The interviewers will exercise appropriate COVID-19 protocols using personal protective equipment. The interviews are confidential in accordance with the statistics law. No individual data will be published or disclosed. Survey data are exempt from freedom of information. For more details, please call the ESO on 516-3329.
Are you a Caymanian status holder, or a resident of the Cayman Islands who is interested in enhancing transparency, accountability, ethical standards, and promoting awareness in public bodies? If you are civic-minded with the highest level of integrity, the Commission's Secretariat, on behalf of His Excellency the Governor, welcomes your expression of interest for appointment to the various statutory commissions. For more information on the commissions and candidate qualifications, visit the Commission's Secretariat website at www.commissionssecretariat.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's good when a new month rolls around and a new week. And thank God and pray that we can continue to be a very productive, positive part of all that unfolds. And I'm honored to be able to, as we talk about and celebrate Child Month, to welcome two incredible ladies to our studio. And we have Shannon Seymour. Thank you so much again for coming on this time. Not part of our Month of Mental Health Matters, as you have been from time to time.
Right.
So thanks for joining us.
I'm very happy to have been invited.
Well, I must say I'm very grateful to Shireen Barnes for coming on us. I mean, we as we were listening to the discussion earlier, there's a lot of resource within this country relative to many things. A lot of things happening, and sometimes we just don't know because we're busy or for whatever reason we didn't look at that thing in time. So, today is the 2nd of May, And every month of May, for every year that I can remember, we celebrate Child Month. So we get a chance to understand what's happening, right?
We're always so grateful for Radio Cayman. We are always guaranteed to come on and just publicize our events, and we are very grateful. So today we probably will take over your show a little bit.
Just a little bit? Okay.
Yes, because what I did, in fact, or what we plan to do this month, because our theme this year is building wellness with our children. So we're looking at wellness in all its form, and mental health, physical health, nutrition, spiritual, all of those aspects of our health. We're going to be exploring with about kids. So we thought that perhaps we'll have some informational session on the radio. So this is the first of several. And so even though we are your guests, we have our own guests that we're bringing on with us. So today our first guest is Miss Shannon Seymour from the Wellness Center. And the topic for today is building resilience and coping skills in our children.
And I appreciate that. And this is how we can partner, we can facilitate, as Dr. Borden has always shared, despite the incredible resources that we have within the private sector. We have, and I say this, tax-funded resources within government. So that partnership between the private and the public, this is the true benefit to a community. We hear the word resilience a lot, even in relation to people. She's very resourceful but resilient. We know as Caymanians there's a strong resilience within our people. We saw it after Ivan, but we saw it during the days of the turtles and everything since. But I can look at the definition in a dictionary and maybe it'll give me something. But Ms. Shannon, from that perspective, what does resilience mean? What is resilience?
I think that's a really good introduction to a really complicated topic, one that we could probably take over his show, Hamashireen, for a very long time. Yep. Resilience, I think, in the context of what the Department of Children and Family Services aims to do over the month of May, which is look at how do we build healthy children in our community, how do we focus on the well-being of our youngest and most vulnerable citizens and residents. And I think in that context, to me, resilience really is the capacity for young children or adolescents to go through challenges, to face adversity and difficulty, but to cope, to be able to manage those stressors of life and come out the other end healthy, strong, able to contribute, able to manage the things that happen in our life. And I think that to your point, Cayman has a long heritage of being a resilient people, right? It's I think my favorite sort of image of resiliency is that the flower growing up amongst the concrete, right? It's the ability to grow and thrive in the face of adversity. And it doesn't mean that we think, okay, well, yeah, kids are resilient, so we can throw any adversity at them. There's very specific things that as adults in a community we have to do in order to help our children be resilient. So when adversity, difficulty, grief, the death of a parent, difficulty comes their way, they have the resources to cope.
We and I appreciate you sharing that. We have as parents probably, but even as just adults in society generally, that this notion, perception, the children are resilient, they're sponges, they're this, they're that, and maybe they are, but is it that we've bombarded them with so much that they've having all this thing without it being filtered, without it being positioned and presented to them in a way where there's a nurturing, helping, guidance, safe, supportive environment that they can help? Are we just tossing them into the water and say, hey, sink or swim?
Some kids might think that. I think, again, I think that's a really, really good conversation that we could probably talk for a long time about, because there is this tendency to really sort of, I think, cushion, bubble wrap kids, never ever make them face adversity or hardship, or if anything is difficult, we move it out of the way as opposed to support them through it. And so I think that's one side of it. But the other side of it is that children are not born resilient. They become resilient, right? Resilience isn't something we sprinkle on top of a child and now magically they're resilient and they can face all kinds of terrible things. Resilience comes out of facing things and challenges with support. So then you develop the confidence in yourself, the capacities to cope. So then the next time something stressful presents itself, you've got a set of tools available to you. And so when we talk about growing resilient children, it's recognizing that some hardship and difficulty or stress starting the first day of a new school, mommy going back to work,
and things out of our control, like the pandemic.
Right, the pandemic, grandma dying. These are very difficult things that all children face. But if they face difficulty buffered with love and support, then they become resilient. They develop the skills and capacities to cope with difficulties. Where we get into real trouble is when children face great adversity without the buffered support of adults around them.
As I was looking at, and I thank Mashireen for providing some of the questions and outlines. Certainly, very, very grateful that through this series we'll have, through you, other professionals. But I look at today's society and maybe the society that we were in as children or parents or grandparents. And there were some words I wrote down, I think, that, sort of allude to baby and coddling. We create this environment for our children where for some parents the approach is, I'll do this all for you. You'll never have any challenge. And for some, let's take cooking, for instance. You've got the stove, that's a gas stove. You got your child who's interested in cooking, and you're saying, hey, use the wood spoon because the metal will conduct heat and you will get burned. Don't stand so close to that. Frying oil, if you do it this way, it will teach. And then if the child doesn't respond to good instruction, we say, no, you can hear, you can feel. We give that child that experience to learn well. That crackling that you hear sounds good, but that oil can sprinkle on you. Not to make it dangerous for the child, but so that they can learn. Now, in saying that, that child grows up to appreciate certain things. Good or bad parenting, there are many of us in a society, as the siblings of that parent, as the agencies in government. That's child abuse. I mean, you can't do that. We create these laws to legislate. Miss Simone?
I think laws that legislate safety for children are good laws to have. I think that we, safeguarding and laws against child abuse and neglect are very important in any civil society. But to your point, I do think that if we limit a child's capacity to explore their environment, to challenge themselves, to see what they can do, we also sometimes limit the ability for them to develop the confidence in themselves. And I think of the child at the playground, right? So climbing up the monkey bars. Are you going to stand there and go, oh, no, that's too high. Don't go up there. Here, I'll lift you. Or are you going to say, all right, look at you. One more step. You can do it. Hang on tight. You got this. So the child's doing something risky. They're challenging themselves, but they have the support of the parent who's encouraging them, but also saying, hey, I'm here, but not saying, don't, you can't. And also not sending them to the playground by themselves.
Right. So does that come then to two things? One, that parent and child relationship. Hey, go ahead in the monkey bars, but I'm here. And then also, perfect example, we've seen that where other adults, other parents would see that child, doing that thing and castigate the parent because you're not underneath there with the safety net. Okay, the child may slip and fall, but it's 2 feet, relative minimal probability that the child will get injured, other than maybe the ego being bruised, right? So we put pressure on each other as parents and expectation. In a way, you didn't put a bubble wrap, sort of gel-coated landing pad.
What I would add to this, I'm not taking away from you. No. Just one little bit. What I would add to it is that over the decades, parenting changed. Definitely. Remember earlier in the 50s and the 60s, they didn't have any safety rails. Children were falling all the time. Right. So it changed over time and the laws followed. And then everything changed, mindset changed. So now it got to the point now where the millennials, their whole concept is different from our experience as children. So parenting styles change, parenting concepts change, and the societal views on certain things change over time.
I think, and I think that's such an important point too. And I also think our sources of parenting information have changed. So I have adult children, and I know even within my lifetime and the lifetime of my kids, my parenting resources were my own parents and maybe my grandparents. maybe some of my friends who had kids at the same age, maybe the old Doctor's Spock parenting books. But now parents have the internet at their fingertips, where you ask one question and you can get 5 different answers. And so I feel my heart really goes out to parents today, because the information, the judgment is so significant in a way that it wasn't even in my generation of raising kids. Right. And I can't even imagine then parents and grandparents who reflect back and think. So there has been this significant shift. I think a lot of things have improved for the life of children in our country in terms of some of our safeguarding, in terms of our understanding of the damage that abuse and neglect can cause. I think those are very advantageous, long overdue, and I support them fully. I think on the other end of the pendulum, though, is this overprotection. So we're not talking about abuse and neglect. We're talking about this sort of wanting to avoid or accommodate any type of discomfort. We were just talking about this the other day in the context of sports, and everybody getting a ribbon, and people asking me what my thoughts were about that, and we had really robust, good discussion with lots of different opinions flowing, which was really nice. But I do think it's good that we, it's Child Month, so I think it's good that we as adults in the community start to think about it. And the one thing I will say is that
we do have a call.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, great. One thing you will say.
Well, I was just saying that what we know now that we did not know 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, is we know the brain science behind early childhood now. And we didn't know that 20 years ago. We didn't know that 30 years ago or 40 years ago. And what we know now through advances in neurology and brain imaging is we can actually see the growth of the brain. And we know now definitively that growth is profound in birth to 5. And we also know that in birth to 5, if that brain is nurtured and supportive and gets responsive caregiving and is protected from severe distress, severe intense abuse, neglect, and hardship, then that brain is set up to be able to learn more efficiently, cope with emotions more effectively, be more resilient in the face of difficulties and challenges. And so when we talk about raising resilient children, we really have to start to recognize that 0 to 5 is the most important period. And what we do really, really matters. All right.
Well, ladies, I invite you to put on your headsets. And as we go to the phones, we're talking about Child Month, but resilience is our discussion. Ms. Shannon Seymour and Ms. Shireen Barnes are our guests. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yes, darling, my friend.
How are you? Thank you for calling. It's good to hear from you.
When, as the lady said, when we was growing up, let's tell you, when there was visitors at the house, you have to just do one cut eye and you have to get out. And we was not heard. So, you know what? I learned that you must never shame your children. If they do anything out the way, call them one side, speak to them. Don't shame them in front of people. And another thing, I see it in younger generations too. You need to listen to your children. Sometimes the children is speaking to you. It happened to me when I was raising up my children, and I had to say, what? No, I need to listen to my kids. And those are the things that, and if you say you have more than one child, you need to notice to see if that child needs attention. Because then sometimes you're busy with the other one and you don't notice the other one. And that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Good point. So you got more than one child, Ms. Shannon.
No, I just think those are great points. I love what the caller had to say about, shaming and embarrassing our kids. I think back in the day, that was a common parenting style, right?
Be seen and not heard.
Yeah, be seen and not heard, but also calling out a kid in front of their friends, and I think sometimes it's recognizing that just because we've always done something doesn't mean it was maybe the right thing to do. And so it isn't about making any parent kind of feel ashamed. It's about understanding, like, if we know something different now, and we can change now, right? Like, we can start to do it differently. And I don't think any of us really benefit from being embarrassed or called out. I mean, I certainly don't. Like, it doesn't help me learn, right? But I think to her point, you know, listening to our children, it's the responsive caregiving. It's the foundation of attachment. It's the foundation of security, is to respond. And from the minute babies are born, they're telling us they need us. They're crying. They're fussing. You know, they get a bit older. They're toddlers. They're tantruming. They're bringing us stuff. They're picking us flowers. They're showing us rocks. They want our response. And I think, to the caller's point, talking and listening and being present, those are powerful tools of parenting that don't cost a thing, and you don't have to buy anything fancy to do it.
Okay. But as I listen to you, I'm thinking of adults, from the parent and all the other adults, and even to some extent to that physically bigger person in that child's life that may not be legally an adult, but an older sibling or somebody else. Those comments affect, but the adults that we put in our child's life deliberately, the coaches, the teachers, the Sunday school interactions, the Friday night youth groups. If we all are on the same page as to how we nurture, how we positively speak to the child, it can make a difference.
Certainly. What I wanted to add about what Ms. Seymour was saying was about secure attachment. I think that's something that over time we have become more accustomed to it, and we start to look out for it, and we also start to teach families about it. That secure attachment, that bond between the parent and the child, and how significant and important it is, even from 1 to 5, as you said. And with that attachment, with that child knowing, my mom loves me, my mom cares about me, my mom disciplines me when I need to be disciplined, boundaries and limits. All children need that. All of that is in place, then they will be more resilient.
Absolutely. But those are the building blocks of resiliency.
Right.
If we want to build resilient children, we have to nurture them, attach, be connected to them, create safety for them. We have to be present. And I think, to your point about all these other people in the community, that's one of the wonderful things, because we think of children that face significant adversity in our community, and there are many. And then we can start to get a bit, like it's a bit dire at times, right? But there are so many places where we can get that buffering. If we don't have it in our home, then we can get it in our community. And through coaches, through mentors, like you said, Sunday school. I just recently joined, was invited to become a board member of Big Brothers Big Sisters. And even though I said I'm not doing anything else till I finish my dissertation, I had to say yes, because it is such a wonderful organization that represents everything that I value, which is providing responsive, supportive care to kids. Because I think we can all think back to having that one person that listened to us, that made us feel comfortable, that we could go to when things were difficult. And that's what it really takes to develop kids who can cope with all of the things that we know they're going to face, because it's the things that we faced.
Right.
And we want them to have that resilience.
Right. So when we come back from the break, let's talk about nature and nurture some more. And a small community, it should be easier to identify certain things, implement, and make the corrective steps in order to make it, I use the word better in a sense, safer for our children. So we can chat about that. All right, to our listeners, when we come back, this idea of resilience, and hey, who knew Child Month could be so exciting? Well, stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Radio Cayman. The voice,
the heart,
the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Cayman Islands Customs and Border Control confirms another 20 migrants have arrived in Cayman Brac around 10:45 p.m. last night. 12 of the migrants have disembarked the vessel and said they would not be continuing on their journey. The other 8 remained on board last night. The vessel was moored off Scott's Dock in Cayman Brac. Those 8 migrants departed the Brac at about 7:45 this morning. The 12 who disembarked are currently being processed in accordance with CBC's established protocols. In international headlines, the U.S. Federal Reserve is poised this week to accelerate its most drastic steps in 3 decades to attack inflation by making it costlier to borrow for a car, home, business deal, even a credit card purchase. All of these will compound Americans' financial strains and likely weaken the economy. And of course, remember, here in Cayman, we are connected to what happens with the U.S. rates. Inflation is at a 40-year high in the U.S., and the Fed has come under extraordinary pressure to act aggressively to slow spending and curb the price spikes that are bedeviling households and companies. After its latest rate-setting meeting ends Wednesday, the Fed is expected to announce that it is raising its benchmark short-term interest rate by a 0.5 percentage point, the sharpest hike since 2000. Also out of the U.S. today, a unanimous Supreme Court ruled that Boston violated the free speech rights of a conservative activist when it refused his request to fly a Christian flag on a flagpole outside City Hall. Justice Stephen Breyer wrote for the court that the city discriminated against the activist because of his religious viewpoint, even though it had routinely approved applications for the use of one of the 3 flagpoles out City Hall that fly the U.S., Massachusetts, and Boston flags. Harold Shurtleff and his Camp Constitution wanted to fly a white banner with a red cross on a blue background in the upper left corner, known as the Christian flag, to mark Constitution Day, September 17th in 2017. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vamt Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vamt Motors, Walkers Road.
Water Authority Cayman wishes to advise its valued customers and the motoring public of planned works to upgrade the water supply infrastructure along Grackle Road off Godfrey Nixon Way. Preliminary work began the week of 18 April, and the project will continue through mid-May. Work will take place on weekdays between 7:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Traffic management measures will be in place during the works, with signs directing the traffic flow. Motorists are encouraged to drive with caution when in the area to protect their safety and the safety of the Water Authority's staff. Customers in the area may experience outages throughout the work. The authority will make every effort to give advance notice related to outages. Customers can visit our website, www.waterauthority.ky, for outage notices. The Water Authority appreciates the patience and understanding of its customers and the public as it undertakes these works and apologizes for any inconvenience this may cause.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And I'm very grateful to the opportunity to talk about, some of the activities for Child Month. We will, share with you the calendar. But as we have Ms. Shireen Barnes and Ms. Shannon Seymour as our guests, the idea of resilience, and we talk about, we want to build that in a business, in a community, in our people. And maybe it's a word that we hear not quite fully appreciative of it. As we're talking about that, I was asking, nature and nurture and the like, and with so much, is it a case that it's one or the other or both? Ms. Shannon, from your perspective, resiliency, is it a feature of nature, nurture?
Well, I think, I think science has taught us that it is both. And we used to think that things were nature or nurture, right? That you either got it from your genes or you got it from your experiences. But what we now know through the field of epigenetics is that our genes really sort of, they are a set of instructions, right? But it is our experiences that then determine how those instructions are actioned. And so we might have genetic predispositions, but it is the experiences and the quality of the experiences that will determine the expression of those genes. And the really, really interesting thing is, and especially as it relates to children, is then the experiences can actually change our DNA, which then we then pass on to our children. And so epigenetics is the way the two interlink, and we're looking at, we're learning a lot about it through studying the descendants of Holocaust survivors, studying descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, looking at how severe trauma and adversity in one generation actually shows up in the genetic expression of future subsequent generations. And so I think one of the things just when we talk about adversity is that we talk about adversity often in the home. We talk about abuse and neglect in your family home. We talk about losing a parent to death or incarceration or abandonment. We think of those immediate things, but we also have to think about adversity in our community. You can have a very supportive family living in a very adverse community, a community that is poorly resourced, a community in which there's a great deal of racism or discrimination, crime, violence around you. And so we have adversity on multiple levels. We can have the roots of our life can have lots of adversity in them or lots of support in them. And so it's not always just this first generation thing either, which is the amazing piece of the science of this. And I could talk about it for days, but this is maybe not what the show is about. But to me, it's fascinating. And again, it just speaks to why this topic of Child Month and all of the activities that Ms. Shireen and the team at DCFS have planned are so important to us as a community.
But as you reference adversity, there's a saying we've heard, adversity builds character. And we look at some people that they've had particular experiences, their families, their communities, and yet they seem to, in our minds, are a success, right? And then there are some people that have had it, what's the phrase? Born with a gold spoon in their mouth. But for that, they probably would not be anything. Look at the royal family. Nothing particularly impressive there, but,
But, that speaks to if you look at the roots of that person, right? Again, I think it's the combination of the two. So we know people that just face incredible hardships, and we think, gosh, how are they standing today? But yet they're thriving, right? And then to your credit, we see somebody who has lots of resources but yet struggle. So much of this, there is that genetic piece to it, but there's also the experiential piece. And sometimes when we look at somebody, we're looking at what the part of their life we see, which is maybe the last 10 years, maybe the last 5 years since we've known them, but we're maybe not really understanding all of the experiences that they've had that contribute to the way in which we all can cope with stress.
Or all that they have to overcome.
Yeah.
Or all that they're continuing to hide.
Right, exactly.
Their public face is
and
different from their private face.
And we can individually cope with adversity, but you pile on then family adversity, community adversity, you know what I mean? You start to run out of resources, and that's where we need the community to step in and provide assistance.
If I may ask then, and it may be a opportunity for a future discussion, but I look at the community as a whole, whether it's the wider community, whether it's the community within the education setting, or even sometimes in the families. We assign labels to certain things, and we see a child from a particular neighborhood, whether in Cayman we've seemingly quick to develop and seen sort of practices, and we automatically assume that child is from that family or that neighborhood or that particular part of the country. Therefore, they must be, and there's always a negative connotation. How do we turn that around?
Well, when we talk about with adversity, what we're really talking about is stress. And stress affects the human body, the human organism in many ways, right? And some stress is good. It's the challenge of cooking when you haven't cooked for the first time. It's climbing the monkey bars. It's taking a math exam. It's, sitting your driver's test. That's the kind of stress that elevates our heart rate, gets us feeling afraid. But yet, when we do it, we feel good, we feel accomplished, and then we can kind of approach the next task with a bit more vigor and confidence. Moderate stress is the stress that we're all going to face. The death of a parent, difficulty, family situations, and then there's toxic stress. Toxic stress is the stuff that's really dangerous, that we really have to buffer kids from. And it's not the regular stress or even the moderate stress that we can't control, but it's the toxic stress, which is the discrimination, the constant day in and day out discrimination of where you live or the school you attend, creating a community perception of you that is not accurate or fair. That is a stress on an organism that creates that becomes massively adverse to now try to overcome that. And so I think I'm always thinking bigger than just the family adversity, but in our community, what type of adversity do young people face? Right. And I think your point is really, really important, because we do that a lot depending on, where somebody comes from or what they look like or who their parents are or what school they attend. We assign a value to them. And we have to realize that is a toxic stress that we as a community are putting into that child's life, that if we stop that, evaluate, educate ourselves, recognize what stress does to a child with a brain who's at school all day trying to learn, we can do better.
I want to take this call and maybe come back and talk about association, so that child who is now associated with this one. But let's
we need to talk about the events.
Let's take this caller. Hey, good afternoon, welcome, thanks for calling.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
And I think this morning there was also some discussion on the same subject. And it all sort of relates back to the Cayman Islands community, hopefully. And I think in this morning's program, there's an element that was mentioned about trying to inculcate in the young child a sense of Caymanian heritage, culture, and I guess what could be called the Caymanian ethos. Okay? Now, if you go back to, let's take it from the 1920s up through the 80s, the late 80s, because I think at that point we sort of merged into what's called a modern community, a modern society or whatever, and that's not concise. But has any studies, and from the 1980s going forward to today, has any studies been done on looking back at what the people, the mothers, the teachers, and a child spends probably most of his time with his teacher through the teens, late teens. What methods they use to build or create some of the stalwarts that has come up in the community. Let's say, as I mentioned before, from the 1920s to the 1980s, mid 1980s, late 1980s, and then looked at the same thing from the 1980s up to today, and see what kind of comparison they got. They would have, and see whether this whole thing has gone off track, because you hear a lot of technological phrases being thrown out there, this and that. But I think when you come back to raising children and trying to make sure that they become good community stalwarts, it all comes back to the home environment, having a stable home environment, a nurturing home environment, and one that would let the young child explore and all this kind of thing. And maybe if that kind of study was done within the Cayman Islands community, you might come up with some real good answers to where this whole process has gotten off track. You may be able to nudge it back.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is where these discussions, and I certainly appreciate you raising that. Thank you, sir. And Alex, just giving us 12 past, or 12 minutes or so left. When we come back from this break, talk about the activities so that people can understand that, well, the May a month, 31 days and 2 have already passed. So we still got some good things happening. Thank you again, sir. And for our listeners, please join us after the break.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza, open Monday to Friday 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Get ready for the Cayman National Dance Company's Dimensions, May 7th at the Harkwell Theatre. Dimensions is our journey beneath the surface of the pandemic, local events, and the moments in between our birth to our death. Tickets are $30 for adults and $15 for children, and they're available at Radiance Dance Studio, or simply call 926-1826. Dimensions is sponsored by Audiophile, ARC Directors, and Vi's Closet.
Are you a Caymanian status holder, or a resident of the Cayman Islands who is interested in enhancing transparency, accountability, ethical standards, and promoting awareness in public bodies? If you are civic-minded with the highest level of integrity, the Commission's Secretariat, on behalf of His Excellency the Governor, welcomes your expression of interest for appointment to the various statutory commissions. For more information on the commissions and candidate qualifications, visit the Commission's Secretariat website at www.commissionssecretariat.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks very much to our guests, particularly Shannon Seymour, Ms. Shireen Wise, as well with Child Month. And, maybe this is a discussion for future conversations relative to the brain. It is a fascinating, we joke and say, I wish more of us would engage your brain before we open our mouths, right? But it is so crucial. Now, with the 9 minutes and 48 seconds for me, Ms. Barnes.
Yes, I'd like to end our show today. We're just highlighting some of our events for Child Month. So, the department is, we're dealing with persons in their private lives. So we have a few public campaigns for the year. Child Month is one of them, International Youth Day in August, Older Persons Month in October, and all hands on deck in the department to make sure that we engage with the public, engage with the community, and so we can educate them and they can learn more about us. And don't see us as just social workers coming to do something that they don't like. Mm-hmm. All right, so for for this month now, our theme is building wellness with our children, and we already discussed before. That's wellness in all its form, mental, physical, nutrition, and spiritual, and even social. Social wellness is important because of the friend group and how that is important for teenagers and young people, and doing things outside of the family as well, and sports and art and drama. So we're looking at everything. So some of our events, we already had our church service to launch on Sunday, yesterday, which went very well. We're very happy with that. And then we have some upcoming events. There's a lot of events. So each week when we come to take over your show.
I should have really should take a day off.
We'll be announcing the events for that week.
Yep.
So for this week now, we're going to have this is one of our events, the resilience presentation. Thank you, Miss Shannon. And today we're also having Snuggle and Read in Cayman Brac. And on Friday, May 6th, we're going to have the district game night for Northside. And that's an event that you'd have to register for. So you'd have to contact the community development officer, which Miss Dorleen Welcome is acting in that position now for Northside. And then, or she's organizing this event for us. And then we have the district game night for East End, which is on Saturday, the following night. And that's being organized by Miss Delmira Bodden, the community development officer for East End. So just to highlight some of our other main events, we are going to have a game night every night for each district. So we have 5. So we have 2 coming up. Then the following week we have Friday. So the following, all the others would be on Friday nights for those districts. And then we have the following, the third week, which is the 16th to the 22nd of May. We have a packed week. Several events happening that week. I wanted to just point out our teen panel discussion, which will be in collaboration with Youth Services Unit, and the topic is cyberbullying and responsible use of social media, which we think we are very excited to have the teens discuss that topic with us, and that's going to be on the Youth Flex radio show, and it's going to be at 4 p.m. on May 18th. So I hope everybody tune into that. And there's several events in Cayman Brac that week as well. And then the final week 4, is, oh my God, it's packed. So I will encourage everybody to check out our calendar, which we'll have published later on today. And you'll see all the events that's taking place. So our big event, and when I say big, I mean big. I don't think we've ever done anything as big. We're calling it the Wellness Fair. So that's going to bring together everything that we've been doing for the month. And we were fortunate enough to get sponsorship from DART to use their facility, the ARC. So it's going to be on May 28th at the ARC, 12 to 4. And then we have all our partners who will be joining us on that day. So some of them will be the Wellness Center with a booth. So we are trying to have interactive booths for the family. So we're catering to teenagers as well as younger children. National Gallery will come and they'll set up a booth where they're going to have a big piece of artwork, and all the children are going to come up to the table one by one and do their little piece, piece until it's finished, and then we're going to have it mounted somewhere for everybody to see it. So that's their booth. And then Department of Sports with Miss Mita Day, she's organizing a fabulous booth for the teenagers where they're going to be throwing basketball hoops, beanbag throw, all of those things, and she's prepared to give them prizes for it. So we'll talk more about the Wellness Fair. It's going to be so exciting. Also, we're going to have an illusionist who is going to come and do some illusion just for whimsy and for wonder. And the young children are always excited about a magician, illusionist, Mr. Erickson Hertz. He's agreed to do that for us. So so far we only have 2 sponsors, which would be DART helping us with the ARC, and also Credit Union has also agreed to sponsor one of our events. So we're inviting kind-hearted community members or businesses to contact us if you're interested in assisting us with any of our events. We'll be very grateful for it. And let me not forget to mention that the supermarkets, Foster's, Hurley's, and Kirk's have agreed to publish Child Month activities and Child Month discounts in their publications for the month.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, see, this is the partnership.
Right, so it's like it's a lot of collaboration. So National Gallery, Family Resource Center, Youth Services Unit, the Business and Professional Women's Club, they're keeping a fabulous fashion show, but that's a paid event. And we have the Circle of Love Women's Breakfast. That would be on the 14th of May. Health Services sending us their nutrition, their nutritionists, and YMCA. They're going to have a booth at the fair. And Alex Panton Foundation, they're going to have a booth at the fair. And we're going to have a lot of things going on stage. I'm not going to tell everybody everything yet.
But that's on the 28th.
We have a lot of time. It's on the 28th, right? So we have several more shows.
Yeah, but it's a good way to preview it.
Get excited about it. Get some sponsorship going.
There you go.
Yes, hope so. So thank you for that.
Can I ask just a really quick question?
Yes.
The game nights, are those for parents to bring their kids and play games together in the district?
Okay, so I would ask persons who are interested to contact the person responsible for that district and to get further information. So the game nights are being organized by the community development officers because, they're in the community and they know the people and the young person. So each game night is for that particular district and the residents of that district.
Okay, so it'll be unique to that district then. I love it. Okay.
And in the past, the parents have come out and they've played board games, different things. Some communities would have a little light refreshments. Again, as Ms. Barnes shared, it's community specific. Doesn't mean that if you visit that community with family and friends you can't attend. In the past, it's been a wonderful, even like a family game night almost. It's what it's intended to be.
Yeah, that's what I'm picturing in my mind, and I just think that's awesome. Yeah,
it's been fun. I mean, and you haven't played a particular game if your child is a certain age, whether it's dominoes or it's checkers or shoots and ladders.
The game nights tend to be exciting. We have musical chairs, they have quizzes, they can win prizes, very interactive games, and we have board games, and we have music. So it's always exciting. And food.
We can do it tomorrow. No, but again, it's where the community development officers for the area, but even the wider communities. And I think speaking back to what you were sharing earlier, as a community, if we get more involved and engaged in doing for our community with our community, as opposed to waiting for some other entity. This builds community. This builds resilience. This builds us with a commonality that we speak to our children in a certain way, whether we are the parent or the coach, and that way could be, hey, great job, or it could be, well, let me show you how you can make that thing much more rewarding. Commonalities.
And I think kids know where they feel safe, right? And as a community, we can all take that as an individual responsibility. We know the kids in our neighborhood. We know the kids in our complex. We know right? And taking a couple of minutes to say hi, ask a question, encourage them, that can go a long way. That can make a big difference.
Yes. Well, I'm mindful that this year, hopefully there'll be a change in positive change in our societies, given what we've experienced in the last few years in particular.
Right.
And not just here, not just in the region, but globally.
Right.
And understanding that in Cayman, we joke and say, there's 1,000 different nationalities, but there are people from everywhere. And they're living and working here. They have their families and extended families everywhere. Yeah. And we're all impacted by everything almost immediately because we get access to it, just as it happens.
Right.
So let's see how that translates into society.
So we invite everyone to join us this month for all our activities.
And it'll be up on the website very shortly, right? All right.
What's the website, Shireen?
DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services.
.gov.ky.
.gov.ky. Okay.
Yeah. And we'll have it on our bulletin board, and we'll, once you send it to us, we'll link it to our social media sites as well.
Okay.
And the supermarkets will have it in their flyers. So it's a great opportunity.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to next Monday's discussion. It'll be a little bit shorter, but we'll have the discussion.
Our next show. Yeah. Our next show, we're going to have the National Gallery coming to talk about the effects of art and creativity on mental health.
All right. Well, thank you both very much. I'm always honored to sit here and come away with a greater sense of, enjoyment, but also edification, and with the capacity to build greater resiliency. So, Shannon and Shireen, thank you both.
Thank you so much for having us.
And,
thank you.
To our listeners and our callers for contributing. We invite you tomorrow to be a part of our discussion. So until then, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.